Amidst the harsh, relentless clutches of 1963, a man named Manuel Moreno Barranco drew his final breath under perplexing circumstances. Welcomed into this world on a brilliant April day in 1932, in the stunning city of Jerez de la Frontera, Spain, Barranco's existence was tainted from the outset by the spectre of the Spanish Civil War. His father, a fervent advocate of the Republicans, endured oppression that shrouded the family in a veil of trepidation and unpredictability. Despite this chaotic backdrop, Barranco matured, demonstrating an early inclination towards the written word. This adoration for literature would become his sanctuary, his haven from the harsh realities of political turbulence. As he braved the turbulent seas of adolescence, he found comfort in the realm of words, weaving narratives that mirrored the intricacy of his own existence. Barranco's professional trajectory, however, steered him towards the world of banking, a sphere far removed from the imaginative domain he held dear. Yet his spirit, ever faithful to literature, perpetually lingered close to his genuine passion. In 1957, Barranco unveiled Revelations of a Castaway, an homage to his indomitable spirit and tenacity. Still, life for Barranco wasn't solely immersed in ink and paper. He confronted fiscal hardships that led him on a journey across borders, traversing London, Paris and Barcelona in pursuit of a prosperous publishing career. Each metropolis presented its unique allure and trials, but Barranco, always the battler, never yielded. His existence was as turbulent as the era he was a part of, a tempest that would ultimately engulf him. Barranco was an individual on a crusade that would guide him across frontiers and into the core of obscurity. Manuel Moreno Barranco, a renowned Spanish novelist and short story author, held an unquenchable flame in his soul to spread his stories worldwide. His voyage led him to the vibrant epicenters of culture and literature, London, Paris and Barcelona. These metropolises, though filled with potential, were harsh towards our aspirant author. The stone-paved avenues of London, the enchanting bistros of Paris, the dynamic thoroughfares of Barcelona, all stood as silent spectators to Barranco's trials. His finances were often depleted, hunger a constant companion. Despite his intense yearning to be published, his works faced constant dismissal. The literary world, it appeared, was unprepared for Barranco's narratives. Nevertheless, Barranco was not one to be easily deterred. He perpetuated his craft, inscribing his passion and spirit onto parchment, whilst battling relentless monetary woes. His spirit, though bruised, stood strong. However, fate had a different trajectory planned. The year was 1963. Barranco, in the peak of his existence, was incarcerated. No indictment was issued, no reasoning supplied. One day he was a man labouring to leave his imprint on the literary world. The next, he was a captive, bereft of his freedom, sentenced to a life behind bars. The circumstances leading to his arrest told a different story. In the journey of his writing career, creating political pamphlets regarding communism. Some of these found their way into the hands of the police, which ignited illegal searches of Barranco's home. No official accusations were ever disclosed, no court proceedings ever initiated. His imprisonment was as cryptic as the man himself, a chilling reflection of the era, a somber reminder of the oppressive veil of Francoist Spain that hung heavy over its people, even those whose only transgression was to dare to dream. The harsh confines of his cell would be the last sight Barranco would behold, but the mystery was only just unfolding. Within the frigid, unforgiving confines of a penitentiary, Barranco drew his final breath. Did he commit suicide, as the officialdom suggested? Let's probe deeper into the enigma surrounding his termination. Manuel Moreno Barranco, a literary figurehead and a seasoned banker, was seized without cause, imprisoned and denied a fair trial or visitors. His apprehension was as baffling as the life he lived, marked by economic hardships and an unwavering quest for literary acclaim. Then, within the desolate boundaries of his captivity, Barranco met his fate. As per the official dossier, he fell prey to suicide. However, the scanty details, or perhaps their absence, left a haunting void, a space filled with conjecture and distrust. A stalwart who had braved life's tempests, who had constantly strived to etch a literary niche, had purportedly taken his own existence. It simply didn't fit. Barranco's demise wasn't merely a forgotten incident entombed in the chronicles of history. It ignited global scrutiny. From London to Paris, from Barcelona to farther stretches, the questions reverberated. What led to his death? Why was there no in-depth inquiry? And right at the core of the problem lay the reign of Francois Spain. Despite the global uproar, the powers that be stood indifferent. There was no inquisition, no analysis into the conditions of Barranco's termination. The only report provided was from the guards executing their interrogation, who claimed he fell from the window. His demise, just like his existence, was cloaked in secrecy, a riddle that Francois Spain appeared satisfied to let linger. Barranco may have passed away, but his life and death's resonances persist. His tale, his ordeal, his unresolved demise, all intensified the mystery and fascination encircling this elusive personality. His existence might have been quashed, but the flame of inquisitiveness about his demise continues to flicker, casting elongated, somber silhouettes on the frigid, unyielding canvas of history. The death of Barranco is a story of whispers and deceit, a narrative that begets more riddles than solutions. Hence, we find ourselves at a junction where the unresolved mysteries surrounding Barranco's demise persist like an unwelcome intruder. Was it genuinely self-inflicted, as the official account suggests? Or was persuaded, possibly even pushed? Let's probe further. Barranco, a wordsmith, a literary spirit, fell victim to political oppression due to his father's Republican links. Could this have contributed to his premature end? It's not entirely improbable. We've witnessed how the arena of politics and authority can often distort the boundary between right and wrong, leaving a path of casualties. And then there's his literary endeavors, his fervor for crafting narratives and stretching limits. Did this paint a target on him? Did his phrases, his notions, his narratives stir up trouble? Could it be that his voice, his quill, turned into a menace too formidable to overlook? To add another dimension to this already intricate puzzle, we must examine the conditions of his detention. Detained without formal allegations, incarcerated only to be found lifeless under doubtful circumstances. Was this a simple twist of fate, or was there a more diabolical scheme in action? And let's not fail to remember the global attention his death ignited. Yet regardless, Francois Spain never probed the incident. Why? Was it a smokescreen, a planned attempt to mute the queries and calm the influx of interest? These riddles persist, reverberate, they permeate the tale of Barranco's existence and demise. And as we probe deeper, we find ourselves entangled in a labyrinth of probabilities, each more disconcerting than the next. The reality may remain elusive, leaving the tale of Manuel Moreno Barranco as one of history's most eerie, unresolved enigmas. Barranco's life was abruptly ended, his tale left incomplete. Yet his enduring legacy is seen in his literary works, and the enigma of his Manuel Moreno Barranco, a name resonating through the corridors of time, an existence more than a mere historical footnote. A Spanish wordsmith, a tale weaver, moulded in the cultural crucible of Jerez de la Frontera, Spain. His journey was anything but easy. He confronted persecution, grappled with financial instability, and shouldered the burden of unsuccessful publishing ventures. Nevertheless, he was a man of relentless spirit who relentlessly pursued his literary passion amidst life's adversities. His literary career shone brightly in the murk. His debut, Revelations of a Castaway, bore witness to his tenacity and steadfast perseverance. His words were his lasting tribute, an enduring gift to the world that continues to invigorate, fascinate. Yet, Barranco's existence wasn't solely about his literary feats. It was also marred by a tragic, mystifying conclusion. In 1963, he was apprehended without charges, without a just trial. His prison death, officially alleged as suicide, ignited global scrutiny. The truth of his end, however, remains a persisting mystery, a conundrum that true crime aficionados persist in untangling. The situation of his death, the silent stance of Francois Spain, the lack of a comprehensive investigation, all these components contribute to the enduring enigma surrounding his life and demise. Unanswered questions linger. Elucidations are desired. The narrative of Barranco, though incomplete, remains a gripping account. His existence, his endeavors, his cryptic death, all these facets of Barranco's life persist in their impact. His tale might be incomplete, but his impact remains. His words persist in invigorating, his life in fascinating, and his death, cloaked in secrecy, continues to ensnare the curiosity of many. Manuel Moreno Barranco, an existence wrapped in enigma, a death shrouded in ambiguity, a narrative that continues to enthrall us all.
On an unremarkable day in December 2008, an extraordinary crime occurred that would reverberate throughout Spain. In the tranquil town Aspasia, cradled in the Basque Country's heartland, A notable entrepreneur named Ignacio Uría Mendizábal had just completed his luncheon in a local eatery. Little did he know, it would be his last meal. Emerging into the open air, a car full of men stopped abruptly outside of the restaurant. Two men jumped out and opened fire. In an instant, Ignacio's existence was brutally snuffed out by a barrage of bullets. The mastermind behind this shocking public execution was a pivotal entity in the rogue group, the ETA. Mikel de Garacoitz Aspiatsu, the leader of the ETA, was arrested 2 weeks prior in France. But why target this man? Ignacio Uría was not merely constructing residences or workplaces. He was at the helm of a high-speed railway enterprise, an ambitious undertaking to connect the Basque Country to Madrid. This audacious blueprint was viewed by numerous as a beacon of advancement and affluence, yet, for the militant faction ETA, it symbolized something vastly different. For them, it was an unwelcome imposition by the Spanish and French administrations, a transgression against their concept of an autonomous Basque homeland. This had transformed Uría into a targeted individual. The ETA had delivered threats, extending not just to Uría, but also several enterprises and laborers linked to the project. Irrespective of the peril, Uría had elected to persevere with his aspirations. He had opted to depart that eatery on that ominous December day, fully aware of the jeopardy he was courting. As the echoes of the lethal shots that claimed his life resonated through Azpeitia's lanes, the repercussions of this act of brutality were just beginning to unfold. The ruthless execution of Ignacio Uría Mendizábal was not merely the catastrophic loss of a human's existence, it was a grim testament to the continuing conflict in the Basque Country and an intimidating caution to those who might dare to resist the authority of the ETA. Was the high-speed train project a beacon of advancement or an unwarranted imposition? Such was the query that sparked nationwide debate. Let's journey into the eye of the storm. The state-of-the-art rail initiative, a testament to human innovation, aspired to link the Basque Country to Madrid. An engineering tour de force, it pledged to slash travel durations, stimulate the economy, and bridge the gap between communities. But the prism through which it was viewed varied. Enter ETA, the Basque autonomy seekers. To these separatists, the project was not a pathway to progress, but a marker of their perceived subjugation, an overt dismissal of their aspiration for a sovereign Basque nation. Tensions escalated, with a tempest looming over the initiative. ETA aimed their grievances at firms and personnel involved, infusing a sense of trepidation. Nevertheless, the rail initiative forged ahead, underscoring human tenacity amidst challenges. At the fulcrum of this whirlwind was Ignacio Uría Mendizábal, a Basque entrepreneur and helm of Altuna y Uría. Unyielding in the face of intimidation, he was the embodiment of grit and resolution. What one man deemed progress, a faction saw as repression. The wheels were in motion, the players assembled, and the high-speed rail project had evolved beyond a mere conveyance plan. It had morphed into a battlefield, a face-off of philosophies, a testament to the extent people would go to safeguard their convictions. In a terrifying twist, the Basque separatist group ETA did not only claim accountability, but pledged to continue their violent campaign. The extremist group brazenly confessed to the savage assassination of Ignacio Uría Mendizábal. Their admission, however, reached far beyond mere culpability. Emboldened by their mission, ETA argued that Uría's death was a direct consequence of his refusal to yield to their blackmail attempts. His participation in the contentious high-speed rail initiative, viewed as an intrusion by the Spanish and French governments, added fuel to their fiery resolve. The group's audacity transcended their admission. They disseminated a stark ultimatum, a promise of escalating violence targeting the rail project connecting the Basque territory to Madrid. It was an unmistakable warning to anyone involved in the endeavor. Adhere to our ultimatums or encounter dire repercussions. This declaration illustrated a bleak portrait of the group's extreme ideology. They expressed no regret, no inclination to retreat, and ominously they pledged a consistent reign of terror. Their dauntless threat reflected their relentless endeavor for an autonomous Basque nation, an objective they were prepared to shed blood for. An unspoken promise of impending violence lingered, a macabre testament to the lengths the ETA was prepared to traverse. The shockwave of the atrocity seized the entire nation, yet the leadership remained steadfast, promising retribution for Uría. Following the ruthless assassination, the political canvas of Spain was a whirlwind of sentiments. With a voice laden with sorrow and indignation, Spanish Prime Minister Zapatero addressed the populace. He denounced the act vehemently, calling it an act of cowardice, and terming it an atrocious attack that defied the norms of a civilized society. alongside this chastisement, there was an unwavering resolve that the culprits would not evade justice. In concurrence, the Basque regional president reiterated the prime minister's sentiments. His reproach of the act was forceful and relentless, a distressing reflection of the mindless savagery thrust upon one of their own. He, too, committed to pursuing the culprits, affirming that they would bear the brunt of the law. As the ripples of the incident pulsated through the public domain, the populace reacted with a cocktail of fear, resentment, and grief. The streets echoed with lamentation, their silent tears epitomizing the life that had been cruelly snuffed out. Yet, within this outpouring of sorrow, there was a budding sense of solidarity, a communal determination to not let this act of aggression fragment them. The high-speed rail project, the focal point of this tragic incident, refused to come to a standstill. Instead, it persevered, albeit shrouded in a veil of apprehension and dread. The threats from ETA still loomed ominously, a chilling reminder of the latent danger that hid. Nevertheless, the workers marched on, their resilience serving as a mute reproach to the violent strategies adopted by the militant faction. The aftermath of the homicide was a phase of upheaval and strain, a period when the tenacity of a nation was put to the test. Yet amidst the chaos, Spain held its ground, its leaders and citizens united in their pledge to uphold justice and their refusal to succumb to terror. As the remnants of the incident cleared, was one undeniable truth. Ignacio Uría Mendizábal's demise had altered the course of events forever. The reign of terror by the ETA was far from its culmination, yet the demise of Uría marked a significant juncture. The ETA, a Basque separatist faction, is steeped in a violent and tumultuous history saturated with fear tactics and brutality. Noteworthily, they initiated a ceasefire in 2006, providing a fleeting ray of optimism to an area tormented strife. However, this optimism was ephemeral. The faction rekindled their assaults later that very year, shattering any mirage of a harmonious resolution. A mere fortnight before the assassination of Uría, the authorities apprehended the group's leader. But this capture was a reprisal associated with a succession of attacks by the ETA, inclusive of the notorious Madrid airport blast. The faction's retaliation to the capture was immediate and ruthless, culminating in the chilling execution of Ignacio Uría Mendizábal, a man whose only transgression was his participation in a project aimed at unifying people and locales. Yet, the repercussions of ETA's brutality transcend far beyond the lamentable demise of Uría. The faction stands accountable for over 825 mortalities since the late 1960s. Each life lost serves as a stark testament to the havoc that violence and radicalism can wreak. However, within the gloom of the past emerge flickers of fortitude and optimism. The remembrance of Ignacio Uría Mendizábal, an entrepreneur with a blueprint for advancement, stands as a moving testament to the human spirit's capability to persevere. His existence, prematurely ended by brutality, perpetually motivates those who envisage a future where the Basque region is characterized not by the wounds of its history, but by the potential of its inhabitants. In the face of such unrelenting brutality, the memory of Ignacio Uría Mendizábal and his blueprint for advancement shine as a beacon of optimism and resilience.
Picture your city dangling perilously on the cusp of anarchy. Think of an area trembling on the verge of pandemonium, a locale wrestling with its sense of self, a populace split asunder. This was the scenario in Spain's Basque region during the twilight of the 70s. A subtle ripple of unrest filled the atmosphere, the strain almost tangible. Urban revolutionaries haunted the streets, their identities veiled as ordinary citizens. Medical personnel, educators, the person living next door, all potential rebels in a city where faith in one another was now a precious commodity. The Basque region was like a pressure cooker about to burst. The severity of violence was on the rise, an ominous ballet of dominance and resistance. Blood smeared the ancient stone pathways and murmurs of revolt reverberated in the quiet corners of local pubs. It was an unsettling period to be a well-known figure, a risky time to possess political affiliations. In a contentious maneuver, the ruling power announced an amnesty for political detainees, possibly granting freedom to 23 Basque separatists, an action akin to adding fuel to an already wild blaze. The city was a powder keg, the denizens a cocktail of dread and defiance, the ambience saturated with unpredictability. Each dawn was a gamble, a journey into the unpredictable. Amid the chaos, the affluent and influential were no exception. Their wealth and clout, typically acting as barriers against hardship, had now become beacons attracting danger. Among them was one individual, a man straddling the realms of commerce and politics, a previous city leader with connections to the Franco regime who was about to find himself under scrutiny. His name was Javier Ybarra Bergé, an industrial mogul, an author, a statesman, a man of many facets with far-reaching influence. Yet even he could not foresee the tempest that was brewing around him. In the eye of this storm, a wealthy industrialist would soon find himself painted as a conspicuous mark. Can you fathom the horror of being abducted right from your home in broad daylight? On one fateful day, that nightmare became reality for Javier Ybarra, an esteemed Basque industrialist, author and politician. His political tenure includes being the mayor of Bilbao from 1963 to 69, and his footprints are etched deep in the political landscape of the Spanish Second Republic. His significance is not confined to politics alone. He was an influential player in numerous corporations and a published author of Civil War tales, historical truths, and political observations. But one ordinary day, the 20th of May 1977, his routine life gets abruptly derailed. In a volatile Basque region, the atmosphere is thick with tension. Urban guerrillas, in a deceptive guise of benign nurses, breach the security of his home. They were armed, menacing, and their objectives far from honorable. Ybarra was not just any opulent industrialist. He was a right-wing industrialist, a man of commerce tied to the Franco regime. This association, this loyalty, is what painted a bullseye on his back. These aggressors, they are rebel members of the Basque separatist group ETA, and they have a score to settle with the government. The government's decision to free political captives before the elections is not sitting well with them. In their perspective, Ybarra was the ideal bargaining chip to derail this plan. As they hauled him away from the sanctuary of his home, the curtain opened on a crime that would send tremors through the nation. How far would you go for your beliefs? Would you commit murder? It is a question that stirs the conscience of many, yet, shockingly for a few, the answer is a resounding yes. This dilemma found its victim in Javier Ybarra, a man of multifaceted roles. On that dreadful day of May 20th, 1977, Ybarra was cruelly wrenched away from his home by rogue elements of the Basque separatist group, ETA. Recognized for their brutal tactics, they fought for independence with fear as their weapon of choice and Ybarra as their target. The abduction was part of a larger, ominous plot aimed at destabilizing the government's strategies before Spain's general elections. Ybarra, with his connections to the Franco regime, was an ideal target. However, what commenced as a kidnapping soon took a darker twist. The rogue ETA members' intent was not merely to kidnap Ybarra, they aimed to send a chilling message. They wanted to display their power, determination, and their absolute disrespect for human life. And they did just that with Ybarra. Even with dozens of prisoners being released according to the kidnappers' demands, it wasn't enough. They later requested a payment of 1 billion pesetas in addition to the original prisoner release demand. When the family failed to come up with the money, another message was sent. This time, it wasn't for ransom, but a location. When police finally arrived at the spot, they found Ybarra had been shot in the head, his life extinguished by the very movement he had involuntarily become part of. His lifeless body was discovered near a farmhouse in Navarra, a grim testament to how far these separatists would go to advance their cause. The location was strategic. To leave Ybarra's body in such a location was a daunting message. Nobody was safe, not even in the most secluded parts of the country. Upon further investigation, Ybarra's body had shown signs of brutal punishment and starvation, with barely a few blades of grass lining his stomach. The reasoning behind this gruesome act was simple and horrifying: to cause disruption. The renegades aimed to plunge the country into disorder, to fuel the embers of fear and uncertainty. By doing so, they sought to weaken the government's authority and lay the groundwork for their political objectives. A life was lost, but the story was far from over. The murder of Javier Ybarra was not a mere act of violence, but a spark that ignited a series of events shaking Spain to its very foundation. The echoes of that gunshot continue to resonate today, a chilling reminder of the extreme measures some may resort to for their beliefs. What happens when a crime rattles a nation? The shockwave following Javier Ybarra's murder was felt throughout Spain. Ybarra was no ordinary citizen. His political and business ties ran deep throughout the country. His death underscored the volatile political landscape of Spain. It was a chilling reminder of the fragility of the country's newfound democracy, particularly as it occurred in the aftermath of Spain's first free national elections in 4 decades. Ybarra's death wasn't simply a local affair. It transcended the boundaries of the Basque region and left a lasting impact on the national consciousness. It sparked widespread condemnation and intensified the existing tension in the Basque region, further destabilizing it. The region was thrown into chaos, with killings, demonstrations and retaliations becoming the norm. The ETA group, responsible for Ybarra's kidnap and murder, were no longer seen as freedom fighters but were now perceived as cold-blooded killers. Despite all this, the government declared an amnesty for political prisoners, which could potentially lead to the release of 100 Basque separatists. This was seen as a risky move to restore order and quell the violence. In the end, Javier Ybarra was more than a victim. He became a symbol of a nation in turmoil. His death underscored the price of political discord and the struggle of a nation trying to navigate its turbulent past. The scars of his murder still resonate today, a chilling reminder of a time best forgotten. What lessons can we draw from this chilling tale of crime and political maneuvering? The narrative of Javier Ybarra is a timeless tale of power, politics and danger. An influential figure in the Basque region, Ybarra was not just an industrialist, but also a writer and a politician, heavily woven into Spain's political tapestry. His abduction and subsequent assassination by members of the Basque separatist group ETA was a jolting act of brutality that echoed far beyond Spain's boundaries. This transgression was not merely an act of terror. It was a declaration, a political stratagem aimed to disrupt the government's plan to release prisoners prior to the elections. It was an act that sent waves of unease through a country teetering on the edge of transformation, escalating violence in an already tense region. But this is not merely a story of political scheming and terrifying acts of brutality. It's a narrative about the human cost of such deeds. A man's life was taken, a family was left mourning, and a nation was left in disbelief. It's a stark reminder of the extent some will go to in pursuit of their political objectives. The assassination of Ybarra prompted widespread denunciation, marking a turning point in Spain's political and social landscape. His death was a catalyst, prompting the government to plan against such acts of terror. It was a pivotal moment that would influence the course of the Basque region and Spain in its totality. But the aftermath of Javier Ybarra's murder was not only political, it was personal. His writings, his contributions to the industrial sector, and his tenure as the mayor of Bilbao left a lasting mark on the Basque region. His story continues to fascinate true crime aficionados, a chilling reminder of the intersection between politics and crime. In the realm of true crime, some stories leave an indelible mark. The murder of Javier Ybarra is one such story.
Ponder for a moment. You're casually strolling down the sidewalk on a sunny afternoon, absorbed in your thoughts, and then abruptly, your existence is snuffed out. It's a spine-chilling concept, isn't it? The delicate balance of life, its capriciousness, particularly amidst the crossfire of political discord and relentless separatist campaigns. Such was the brutal fate of Fernando Buesa Blanco. So, who was this intriguing individual whose existence met such a sudden end? The answer may astonish you. Fernando Buesa Blanco, taking his first breath in 1946, was a distinguished Spanish statesman whose influence was permanently etched onto the Basque region. His political ties spanned the Basque Christian democracy and the Socialist Party of the region, where he held manifold positions, amongst them Vice Lehendakari and Minister of Education. Buesa was a trailblazer, committed to incorporating Basque language institutions into the public schooling network. This endeavor stood as a powerful testimony to his dedication towards nurturing cultural pride and identity among the Basque populace. His fervor for education transcended political boundaries. It mirrored his deep-rooted belief in the potency of wisdom and scholarly pursuit. However, Buesa's existence wasn't solely restricted to the realms of authority. He was famed for his strolls across the university campus in Vitoria-Gasteiz, the very place where he met a tragic end in 2000. His demise sent shockwaves across the country, culminating in the renaming of the Vitoria-Gasteiz Baskonia basketball stadium in his memory. Buesa transcended typical political labels. He was a champion of education, a true servant of the masses. February 22, 2000, a day forever imprinted on Spain's history. On this ominous day, Fernando Buesa Blanco, an esteemed Spanish politician, was conducting his routine affairs in the city of Vitoria-Gasteiz. His itinerary was brimming with conferences, addresses, and official formalities, the typical activities for a man of his standing. Nonetheless, this day had a somber distinction. A fact unknown to him, it would mark his last 24 hours. As dawn broke, Buesa embarked on his day at the Basque country's governmental quarters. He tackled his morning agenda with his signature tenacity, oblivious to the disastrous fate that was impending. He invested the initial hours of his day engrossed in his duties, his thoughts riveted on the improvement of his cherished Basque country. Progressing through the day, Buesa opted for a relaxed amble across the university grounds, shadowed by his vigilant protector, an ever-present bodyguard attached at his hip due to his perilous profession. The campus was alive, radiating the dynamic aspirations of students. The atmosphere was laden with intellectual discussions, engaging debates, and the anticipation of a prosperous tomorrow. Suddenly, the lethal attack arrived. The unwitting politician and his protector sauntered directly into the carefully planned ambush. In a fraction of a second, their existence evaporated into the air. A bomb emplaced with lethal accuracy detonated, shattering the town and innumerable lives along with it. The explosion was thunderous, the aftermath catastrophic. Buesa and his bodyguard perished instantly, their lives ruthlessly snuffed out by an act of brutal aggression. In the wake, the campus descended into pandemonium. The grounds, once echoing the vigor of youthful ambition, were now the backdrop of a savage assassination. The jovial chatter and debates had been supplanted by shrieks and lamentations of dread. The expectation of a bright future was eclipsed by a violent reality. A life to service ceased in a fleeting moment, casting an unerasable imprint on Spain. The assassination sent shockwaves across Spain and the world. The sudden absence of Fernando Buesa Blanco, a stalwart in public service and education, sent a compelling message that resonated across political corridors and touched the souls of common people. This abrupt void was a stark reminder of the toll some bear for their dedication to principles. The aftermath was characterized by deep-seated grief and outrage. People from all walks of life assembled to pay homage and express their denunciation of the mindless violence. Public spaces were filled with collective grief for a life suddenly departed and an altered future. The subsequent investigation mirrored the seriousness of the offense. Detectives relentlessly combed through evidence and pursued leads, their resolve fortified by the magnitude of the tragedy. The killing wasn't merely an attack on an individual, but a repudiation of the democratic and peaceful values that Buesa epitomized. Paying homage to Buesa's lasting influence and his profound impact on his community, the Vitoria-Gasteiz Baskonia basketball stadium was christened in his memory. This gesture underscored his enduring legacy, a beacon of optimism and fortitude amidst trials. His name, now inscribed in stone and in the hearts of countless sports enthusiasts, remains a potent symbol of his steadfast devotion to his people and his mission. Ultimately, the calamity of Buesa's assassination served to heighten his message and broaden his reach. His life, and the values he cherished, became rallying points for those advocating justice and peace. Even in his death, his spirit continued to invigorate those who carried forward his mission. But who would orchestrate such a terrifying act? We delve into the gloom of the Basque region, where the ETA, an alleged separatist faction, lurks. This faction was far from inexperienced in employing violent strategies, nor was it a stranger to the public eye. In fact, the ETA bore an infamous reputation, a past tarnished with the utilization of murders and bombings. The acronym ETA stands for Euskadi ta Askatasuna, translating to Basque, Homeland and Liberty in the native dialect, and their goal was the independence of the Basque region. Their approach, however, was far from diplomatic or peaceful, but rather destructive and tragic, leaving behind a path of wreckage and grief. Their weapon of choice? Car bombs, a ruthless and detached means of inflicting chaos. This method was a recurring theme in their terror campaign, having claimed countless innocent lives. The ETA had a notorious history of such assaults, each succeeding one escalating the dread and unrest in the region. The assassination of Fernando Buesa Blanco bore the characteristics of a typical ETA assault, from the venue to the execution. The university campus, a communal area, the car bomb, a haunting reminder of the terror the organization inflicts. Even though the group never claimed the attack, all signs indicated one direction: towards the ETA and their unyielding crusade for Basque self-rule. With their break of the ceasefire just several months earlier and the typical MO, all signs pointed in the ETA direction. Thus, in the wake of this calamitous incident, the quest for justice was kindled. The chase for the culprits ensued, with all signs pointing towards the ETA. The quest for justice was underway, with the main suspects under scrutiny. Regrettably, Fernando Buesa's murder was not a solitary occurrence. The reverberations of hostility continued to haunt the Basque region. Only a year hence, an automobile explosion devastated the scenic city of San Sebastian. This was more than an act of brutality. It was a deliberate strategy, emblematic of the alleged Basque separatist faction, ETA. Two innocent men, employees of a power corporation, became the casualties of this heinous act. However, they were not the sole individuals trapped in the combat zone. A Socialist Party representative succumbed to the explosion, while 4 others sustained injuries. The traces of Buesa's murder resonated across the city. The fear, the anarchy, the grief. The city was reeling once again under a familiar nightmare. This was more a criminal act. It was a proclamation. Each detonation, each life lost, accentuated their aggressive pursuit. The episode unfolded during a tense political atmosphere. With elections nearing, the region already on high alert due to violent activities associated with the separatist faction. The remnants of Fernando Buesa's murder continued to haunt, a chilling reminder of the enduring pursuit of peace. The bloodshed had not ceased with his demise. It had merely morphed into a different beast. And as the Basque region struggled to deal with the consequences of these events, one fact remained indisputable. The journey towards peace was still riddled with peril and unpredictability. True crime delves beyond the act of criminality. It encompasses the individuals, narratives, and ramifications. The murder of Fernando Buesa Blanco transcended mere politics. It represented a savage blow to the core of Basque society. Not only did it result in a heart-rending loss, but it also sparked a communal sense of resolution towards peace and unity. Buesa's enduring influence, his advancements in education, and his tireless drive for progress persistently reverberate throughout the Basque territory. Amidst the grief, it's this enduring influence that prevails.
In 2000, the brutal murder of Ernest Lluch, a prominent Spanish economist and politician, resonated worldwide. A native of Vilassar de Mar, Barcelona, Lluch was an esteemed intellectual. He had academics roles at the University of Barcelona and Valencia, imparting wisdom to students. As Health and Consumption Minister from 1982 to 1986, Lluch contributed to Spain's first Socialist Workers' Party government, led by Felipe González. His peaceful approach to the Basque conflict set him apart from his contemporaries. But this stance led the Basque separatist group, ETA, to view him as a figure symbolizing Basque oppression by Spain, marking him as a target. ETA claimed responsibility for Lluch's murder, one among their many victims. Lluch's assassination impacted not only Spain, but the world. A massive protest followed in Barcelona, where hundreds of thousands demanded justice for Lluch and peace in the Basque region. As we recount this grim event, we remember Lluch, not only as a victim, but as a beacon of hope during chaotic times. Though his life met a tragic end, his enduring legacy continues to motivate Spain's future. On a tranquil Barcelona evening, peace was shattered by 2 piercing gunshots. A mundane night was poised to etch a notorious imprint on Spanish history. The target was Ernest Lluch, a distinguished economist and politician. A prominent member of the Socialist Party of Catalonia and former Minister of Health, Lluch had earned respect for his academic achievements and advocacy for peaceful dialogue. But his political ideals had also garnered enemies. On this fateful night, danger lurked in the shadows. At home, Lluch was unaware that his life was on the precipice of a violent end. The Basque separatist organization ETA, infamous for their brutality, had marked him. As he relaxed into the evening, the quiet was broken. 2 gunshots echoed through the neighborhood, the bullets finding their mark. Lluch was shot twice in the head, a brutal end for a man who championed non-violent resolution. The silence that followed was chilling. His home was now a crime scene, the tranquility replaced by the harsh reality of a ruthless killing. The sounds of the gunfire were a reminder of the price he paid for his political beliefs. Shock gripped Barcelona. A life devoted to public service was abruptly ended. The gunshots echoed not just the end of a life, but the silencing of a voice. The sudden silencing of his voice, beacon of diplomacy in the Basque conflict, sent tremors that resonated beyond Spain. Barcelona, a city known for its vibrancy, was suffused with a wave of outrage. Citizens thronged the streets, their collective outcry for justice pounding through the city's ancient corridors. This public manifestation was a stark reminder of the global impact of his termination. The ramifications were far-reaching and the implications grave. It underlined the need for resolution through dialogue, forsaking violence. As the dust settled after his tragic demise, one fact emerged clear. These wounds, though deep, would not erase Lluch's ideals. His principles and legacy would persist undying. A stark reminder emerged: the quest for peace must endure even amidst senseless violence. After the shocking assassination of Lluch, the Spanish police embarked on a relentless manhunt. Spurred by the outcry of 1 million Barcelona protesters, they pursued justice with determination. Every possible lead was scrutinized thoroughly. The investigation's trajectory changed when the infamous Basque separatist group ETA, notorious for ending a 14-month ceasefire in 1999, claimed responsibility for the murder. They perceived Lluch's promotion of a Spain-controlled Basque country as a threat to their objectives. This acknowledgement steered the investigation's course, but was merely the start. The authorities now had a group to target, but needed to identify the perpetrators. The turning point came when they apprehended 2 ETA suspects linked to Lluch's murder. Their arrest was the initial victory. The real challenge was to amass convincing evidence for the trial. The careful collection of proof and the persistent pursuit of justice led to the suspects' trial. They were charged with the grave crime of murdering a dedicated public servant. The trial was pervaded by tension, the evidence compelling. The verdict? Guilty. The ETA members were sentenced to 33 years in prison, a fitting punishment for their heinous crime. This conviction symbolized justice, but the loss of Ernest Lluch left an indelible mark on Spain. Ernest Lluch, an acclaimed economist and politician, used his influence to advocate for peace and dialogue. He was a prominent figure in the Socialist Party of Catalonia and served diligently as the Minister of Health. His most notable work revolved around the Basque conflict. In a world dominated by hostility, Lluch emerged as a voice for peace, firmly believing in dialogue as the path to reconciliation. His proactive approach pushed for the government's interaction with Basque nationalists, emphasizing the need for open conversation. Even after his life was tragically cut short, his principles continue to echo in the corridors of power. His assassination, however, sparked a myriad of questions. Why are so many political leaders being targeted? How is one group, the ETA, responsible for all of these attacks? Could there be a link to each of these political assassinations carried out by this single organization? These are some of the inquiries surrounding the political deaths during that period. Could these leaders have stumbled onto something they weren't supposed to know? Were any of them about to come clean? One can only speculate at this point. Please let us know in the comments if you think these deaths were just mere coincidence or something more sinister. Thanks for watching another D3 Crime Stories presentation. Make sure to check out this next video for more insane crimes around the world.